Trying to be a smart investor is pretty different than being an entrepreneur because you really need to have different characteristics and different traits. My name is Fırat İşbecer. I'm the founder and CEO of Comensis, a software company, technology company based out of Istanbul, Turkey. We focus on digital transformation of large enterprises such as banks, airlines, insurance companies. We also have a data analytics product, and we operate in 15 different markets. We have offices in Germany, Berlin, London, also in the United States. I also am a seed investor. I invest in small startups with outstanding entrepreneurs and founders and try to bring them to the next level. Trying to be a smart investor is pretty different than being an entrepreneur because you really need to have different characteristics and different traits if you want to be a smart investor. First of all, I think investors they should listen more than entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurs are most about execution, and they actually like to give out orders and they like to direct their teams and actually create the vision by themselves. Whereas you're an investor, you really need to help the entrepreneur to actually come up with these ideas. So you need to be in a supportive role. You don't have to be the star role to be able to actually make sure that the company you're investing is successful. So those are the few little nuances that makes a huge difference between an investor and an entrepreneur. I did not become an investor overnight. Of course, I started investing almost 10 years ago, actually more than 10 years ago, and I made some bad investments, I've made some good investments. But looking at the good investments I've made or the promising investments I made, there's a few things that are very consistent with each other. First is the founder. So the founder is the founders, let's say, is the most important aspect here. Even though they don't have the most amazing product, a really good founder, a stellar founder, can actually make a mediocre product become a market leader and actually get a good chunk of the market share. But in many cases, we've seen the opposite. An amazing product with a great market to address and could even become a monopoly is ruined because of a bad founder. So I think the founder is really important. Second is the trust that you really need to build with the founder and the investor. If there's no trust, there's no scaling. You cannot scale that partnership, and the business cannot scale if the trust aspect is not there. So it needs to be a very trustworthy relationship. There needs to be a lot of communication, a lot of help going on. You really need to help the founder step up to the next level. So you found the right founder and you like the product itself. You also like the industry, then you need to invest. But sometimes the founder or the entrepreneur will have a lot of offers and they may not choose you as an investor. So you really need to have a couple of elements, let's say traits, as an investor to be able to actually convince the founders to get the investment from you. Number one, you need to have money. If you want to be an investor, of course you need to have money, and that's non-negotiable. You cannot really sell like sweat equity, you cannot sell like other stuff, barter things out. It has to be money or something that's very money equivalent. Then you need to have a certain reputation, because if you want to be a seed investor, an angel investor, or a smart investor, or smart money, you need to have a certain clout, you need to have a certain reputation where the founder will feel that you're adding value to their cap table. And then you need to be able to open doors and make introductions for the founders that really think that you can become a smart investor for them. That's why your whole career is a long marathon where you build a certain reputation and people trust you more and they want to do business with you, and they also value your introductions and your references. So the reference factor is very important here, and to be able to create that, you need to have a certain reputation where the founder can actually benefit from. The third element is expertise. You don't have to be a subject matter expert in terms of the industry or the area or the product, but you need to have certain expertises. It could be an organizational, it could be a financial or human capital expertise that you can actually contribute to the startup's growth while trying to get them to the next level. So don't limit yourself with the industry. If you can be of benefit to a startup organizationally, financially, or in other ways, or even in marketing, then you can actually invest in that startup and you can actually make a difference. The fourth element I would say is compatibility, because if you're an investor, this is a contract you signed that's going to last at least 2, 3, or 5 or 10 years. So you need to have a certain compatibility with the founders and the founders. which is very important. You need to actually be able to give advice. And the founder needs to be coachable. They need to be willing to take your advice. The communication lines should be super clear. And then once they graduate to the next level of investors, which is in this case, if you're a startup investor and a seed investor, then it's probably the VC or the private equity or the eventual acquisition. You need to be able to help them get to that second level. And that's only done through a compatible relationship where both parties enjoy and also benefit from exchanging information and ideas. So a couple of things if you want to remain a smart investor and not make big mistakes. One of the biggest mistakes you can make is that you have too much skin in the game and you are still seeing yourself as a seed investor. If you put a lot of money and money that you really don't want to lose, then you really need to be a part of the execution. So you're not just an investor then. For example, I started investing in this company 1 or 2%, which is my usual ticket size. But then, like during the pandemic crisis, the company was asking for more money, and I eventually became like an 8% shareholder. And then I kept actually injecting money to the company, and then I'm currently a 28% shareholder of the company. So I'm not a seed investor anymore. I'm actually one of the owners of the company. I'm a co-founder of the company. So I acted accordingly. I was able to join the board of directors. Otherwise, I wouldn't join, because if you're not really a major stakeholder in a company, if you don't see a super benefit, don't join the board of the company, because there's so many complications that come with it. But in this company, since I own 28%, I joined the board. I'm actually, executing towards this success, because I don't see it as a seed investment anymore. It's a company that I co-own. So 0 to 4% is you're a shareholder, depending on the entrepreneur. If there's 1 or 2 co-founders that are large chunk of shareholders that still hold like more than 30-40% of the company, then you can actually rely on the entrepreneurs and let them ride the journey. But if you're like topping about 5%, and if you see the situation a little bit divided, like a lot of diverse group of investors, there might be times where you should step in. So I don't really understand when investors are trying to get 5, 10, 15% of the startups they're investing in. It's pretty risky, because then you really need to be involved in the execution a lot. I tend to take below 5%, because I would like to remain as an investor where I'm asked questions when needed, but where I should not be interfering all the time, because I have a business to run. But if you want to be a professional investor, then you can there's other ways to address this problem. But I choose to be a smaller percentage investor if there's nothing alarming going on in the company. So investing has been the second most amazing thing that's happened to me after entrepreneurship, because you learn so much about new industries, you get to know amazing entrepreneurs. If you see the entrepreneurship community as a family, investment is actually being a part of that family with an upside. So you get to know new entrepreneurs, you get to learn new industries. Because you put in money, you learn it really fast. It's a very accelerated way of learning an industry that you're curious about, that you wanted to learn, because you put money in it, be it $25,000, $50,000 or $100,000. If you have skin in the game, actually, you really learn fast. Second is the multiplier effect, which Endeavor is actually slowly implanting in many parts of the world. You really need to create an entrepreneurship ecosystem where it's more robust and the community gets bigger and bigger every day, because the entrepreneurs are going to save the world.